Theories of industrial relations. So in this context, we are discussing theories of industrial relations. There are four theories that is mainly dealt with. One is human relations theory. The other ones, which a lot of things will be discussed in human relations theory, and then is neoclassical theory, human relations movement theory, and pluralistic theory. So these are the four theories we actually discuss in this session. So first we'll take a look at what is human relations theory. So even before that, theories of industrial relation help us to determine national context in the case of Dunlop's IRS, which is subject to global economic influence. So we will talk about Dunlop's IRS. In that context, we will understand how the different theories fold in and what exactly this Dunlop's IRS belongs to. That will be dealing with in a separate or a different section. But first, what we'll do is we'll go through the four theories of industrial relations. First one is human relations theory. So in human relations theory, support is given to workers' autonomy on job and discourages treatment of workers as mere extensions of machinery. In other words, used in subversion of controls. So workers, they are not treated as an extension of machinery. They are given autonomy on the job and support also to a lot of extent under this human relations theory. This theory supports and encourages personal satisfaction of workers in the work premises and accepts the right of employees in how they are governed within the establishment. It also encourages an active interest in improving skills of the workers, skills of the workers, in reducing workplace tension and developing workplace satisfaction. So workers' productivity is seen from the perspective of two approaches. So here what we do is we will also see that there is stresses more. This theory stresses more on workers' relationships. So workers' productivity, as you know, is seen from perspective of two approaches. So even before getting into the approaches, we will see what are the related theories with the human relations theory. So the first one is Maslow's hierarchy is the first one, which talks about physiological safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization goal in its pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy. There are different sections: physiological safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization goals make up the pillars in this the triangle, in this pyramid which we actually speak about. So, and then what else? There is McGregor's theory X and theory Y, which assumes that people are lazy and unmotivated, and it is left to the management to impart discipline. That is theory X. And as it goes against theory Y, where people are pictured as responsible and want to work when they get motivated. So in theory X, what McGregor's theory X, what they say is that people are lazy and unmotivated, and it is left to management to impart discipline. Whereas in theory Y of McGregor, it is directly opposite to theory X. It says people are pictured as responsible and want to work. So these are the theories which are related theories to human relations theory. There is also classical management theories. So in the 1920s, classical management theorists Frederick Taylor, Frank, and Lillian Gilbert spent time in standardization of work. In essence, standardization of workers, the emotional beings. Many people believe that placing too much thrust on worker standardization would not yield any result, as opposed to standardization process. But this classical management theorists proved that indeed is not the case. Hence, while Taylor and Associates continued standardization, so they actually went ahead with standardization, others stated that neoclassical theory of management is a better theory. So that is the difference, that is actually the different theories which is related to human relations theory. So in the last theory which we were talking, Taylor and Associates continued with standardization. whereas others told neoclassical theory of management. So let us see now what is neoclassical theory of industrial relations. So here mostly it is about employee relationships, needs or social needs, intrinsic value of a job, and non-standard jobs. So that is what neoclassical theory projects. It has helped in how best to motivate structure and support employees within an organization. So it bases itself on employee relationships, needs or social needs, intrinsic value of a job, and on non-standard jobs. So standardization, they are actually standing away from that in neoclassical theory. It is more about employee relationships, needs or social needs. Now, employees, rather than being in structured job, shares tasks, information, and knowledge with each other, increasing socialization and ending up being more productive workers. So that is what this theory talks. Employees, no matter what, they share tasks, information, and knowledge. And it may be part of structured jobs, but despite they actually share tasks, information, and knowledge with each other, which increases socialization between the employees and ends up being more productive workers. There are mainly two basic sources of neoclassical theory. One is human relations movement and behavioral movement. So that is what we actually now talk. Human relations movement by Elton, Mayo, and Fritz, and then pluralistic theory by John R. Common. So these are again related to neoclassical theory. Now let us see what is human relations movement. Human relations movement was based on Elton Mayo and Fritz J. Rosenthal, who were paramount in driving experiments under Hawthorne studies. There is an experiment which is conducted, which is very well known in management circles, Hawthorne studies. So they were the paramount, they were the prime people who drove those experiments under Hawthorne studies. It based its parameters around lighting level, rest periods, and length of work days. Eventually, the researchers concluded that rise in productivity was due to high morale, increased attention given to employee, and interpersonal relations that the employee developed during the duration of observation or experiment. So that was the consensus which was drawn from human relations movement. Remember, this movement was from Elton, Mayo, and Fritz. Next is the pluralistic theory, which is the proponent is John R. Commons in US. The multiple interest groups with their own goals give rise to conflict and is the natural expectation. So in this pluralistic theory, John R. Commons in fact accepted that conflict is the way to go. There exists conflict when multiple interest groups work together in an organization. Now what do you do about the conflict? Possibility of compromise existed by way of interaction and collective bargaining. So that is what actually is what actually exists as a result of that. What actually exists? There is a possibility of compromise. So whenever there is conflict which comes into picture, there's a possibility of compromise, and by way of interactions and collective bargaining. What is collective bargaining? In industrial relations, we talk a lot about collective bargaining, which is tabling of discussions between workers and the management and even the government under one table. So tripartite committees and a lot more we actually talk about in industrial relations. So we will talk about that in a later session. But basically, possibility of compromise is there whenever there is conflict, which is by way of interaction and collective bargaining, conflicts can be alleviated. So that is what the pluralist theory talks about. Managers recognize disputes and seek means to regulate the disputes. Employees did understand the basics of conflicts and are ready to negotiate with trade union in the overall context of the organization. So management groups are there, then there is worker groups, most organization is represented by trade unions, and then there exists government. So basically, managers recognize disputes. Managers recognize that there exist disputes between employees or between the employee and the management and seek means to regulate the disputes. Employees did understand the basics of conflicts and are ready to negotiate with trade union in the overall context of the organization. Now, Arthur Rose argues that organization is a pluralistic society with many related but separate interests and objectives which must be maintained in some equilibrium. Organization, in other words, is a paramount and dynamic state of tension due to conflicting interests and objectives, and requires to be managed through a variety of roles, institutions, and processes. So this is basically the gist of pluralistic theory, where John R. Commons accept that conflict exists in an organization, especially when there are multiple interest groups within an organization. So this, in fact, we have spoken about 4 theories of industrial relations, and this concludes this session. Thank you.